And it is a blessing to have everyone back here this morning. Even though I know we're divided into two different services now, at least there's a chance to be able to worship together as a congregation, and that's really a blessing. I miss seeing all of you, and I hope that you can enjoy our time of worship together. In John chapter 12, we're going to begin in verse 1. Then 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany where Lazarus was, who had been dead, whom he had raised from the dead. There they made him a supper, and Martha served, but Lazarus was one of those who sat at the table with him. Then Mary took a pound of very costly oil of spikenard, anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the fragrance of the oil. But one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, who would betray him, said, "Why was this fragrant oil not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" This he said not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had the money box, and he used to take what was put in it. But Jesus said, "Let her alone. She's kept this for the day of my burial. For the poor you have with you always, but me you do not have always." Let's pray. Father, it is a joy to be able to come together again as the body of Christ. It's good, Lord, to be able to come out here on this beautiful Sunday morning and lift our voices and our hearts and worship with you. Thank you, Father, for those who have come out today, and thank you for our worship team, the way in which they've led us in worship. I pray that we continue to worship you as we give attention to your word. I pray that you would set a guard over my lips, that I would speak those things that are right and true, and that you would be exalted among us today. In Jesus' name, amen. You may be seated. In this passage, we have a picture of two very different people. One who loved Jesus a great deal, and another who followed Jesus only because of what was in it for him personally. It's a passage that challenges us to ask ourselves, who are we more like? Mary, who loved extravagantly, or Judas, whose love was calculated? John opens up the passage by telling us that 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany where Lazarus was, who had been dead, whom he had raised from the dead. There they made him a supper, and Martha served, but Lazarus was one of those who sat at the table with him. So here's the setting. Jesus and his disciples are on the way to Jerusalem to celebrate Passover. And as they pass through Bethany, Jesus decides to stop and visit some old friends, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. They don't know it, but it's the last time Jesus will be in their home. Mary and Martha prepare a meal for everyone. And I want you to remember, we're talking about a meal for 16 people here. Jesus, the 12 apostles, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. And as usual, Martha's the one serving. Lazarus is sitting at the table with Jesus and the disciples. Then I want you to look at what happens. Verse 3. Then Mary took a pound of very costly oil of spikenard. Now this isn't Mary the mother of Jesus. This isn't Mary Magdalene. This is Mary the sister of Martha and Lazarus. Then Mary took a pound of very costly oil of spikenard, anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the fragrance of the oil. So here they are, sitting down and sharing a meal together, laughing and talking. Martha bringing in more food, clearing away dishes. And then Mary comes in holding this flask of oil of spikenard, which was a very costly perfume. She breaks off the top of the flask, drops to her knees before the feet of Jesus, and begins to pour the perfume over his feet. She empties the flask, and then begins to wipe his feet with her hair. Can you imagine how the words and laughter must have left that room as the aroma of the perfume filled it? Can you hear the awkward silence? Every eye on Jesus and Mary. What caused Mary to do this? What caused her to pour out a bottle of perfume on the feet of Jesus that was worth nearly a year's wages? It was worth 300 denarii, we're told in verse 5. A denarius was a day's wage. In today's term, we will be talking about something that's worth tens of thousands of dollars. And she pours all of it out onto Jesus' feet. And then wipes his feet with her hair. And in Judaism, hair was seen as the crowning glory of a woman. She uses her hair to wipe his feet. The one most appalled by her action, Judas Iscariot, is the first to speak. In verse 4 we're told, but one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son who would betray him, said, why was this fragrant oil not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor? This he said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had the money box and he used to take what was put in it. You want to know the difference between someone whose love is extravagant and someone whose love is calculated? You're seeing the difference here. The difference is that someone who loves extravagantly never thinks about the cost. All he thinks about is the other person and how he can best show his love for the other person. While someone whose love is calculating only gives what's reasonable and often with the intent of getting something back. Focus is not really on the other person, even though the other person is the recipient of the gift. The focus is on self, on what you can get from the other person by giving a gift. And so Judas sees this woman expressing her love for Jesus in the strongest way she has to express it, giving the most precious thing that she has. And what's Judas's reaction? He's wishing she would have gone ahead and donated the perfume so they could have sold it for the money, and then he could have taken some of the money for himself. Now that's not what he says. He tries to clothe his greed in altruism. This money should have been taken and given to the poor, Judas says. But John goes on to tell us in verse 6 that Judas didn't really say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a treasurer and was in the habit of embezzling money from the donations given to Jesus. And that's an important piece of information because it answers a question, many questions that people have about Judas. How could Judas, one of Jesus' disciples, ever have betrayed him? How could Satan have entered into one of Jesus' disciples, as we're told happened with Judas in John chapter 13, verse 27? Did Judas lose his salvation? And of course the answer is no. Judas didn't lose his salvation because you can't lose something you don't have to begin with. John tells us in verse 6 that during the time Judas was the treasurer, he had been stealing money. Judas had been a follower of Jesus, not because there was any abiding love in his heart for Jesus, but because he saw Jesus as a rising star, and he wanted to hook himself to that star. He'd be able to use Jesus in order to get what he wanted out of life. Of course, Jesus knew this. He was never really deceived by Judas, just as he's not deceived this time. Jesus knows there's no real concern for the poor in Judas's heart. So Jesus gives an answer intended not so much to correct Judas as to affirm the love behind Mary's gift. Verse 7. But Jesus said, let her alone. She has kept this for the day of my burial. For the poor you have with you always, but me you do not have always. Here's a woman who has just given one of the strongest expressions of genuine love that anyone ever gave to Jesus. And immediately she's attacked by someone who doesn't have that love and doesn't understand that love. And so Jesus comes to Mary's defense. He won't allow her gift to be demeaned. Leave her alone, Jesus says. She's kept this for the day of my burial. For the poor you have with you always, but me you do not have always. So again, this brings up a question I asked earlier. What is it that causes Mary to give such an extravagant gift to Jesus? Was it gratitude for Jesus having raised her brother Lazarus from the dead? Verse 1 of chapter 12 reminds us that Lazarus was the same one that Jesus had raised from the dead several days earlier. Was that why Mary gave this gift to Jesus? Well, I'm sure she was grateful for Jesus having brought her brother back to life, and I'm sure the miracle only seemed to strengthen her love and faith in Jesus. But I don't think that was her primary motive in doing what she did. Jesus tells us her primary motive. Verse 7, she has kept this for the day of my burial. For the poor you have with you always, but me you do not have always. Did Mary sense something that the others had missed? Did Mary sense an apprehension in Jesus? Did she sense a melancholy in Jesus that the others hadn't seen? Did she somehow know what was coming? Did Mary sense the cross? He's kept this for the day of my burial, Jesus said. You know, whenever you really get to know someone, it's almost as though you can see things in that person that other people can't see. You can tell when that person's troubled. You can tell when there's a heaviness in his spirit. And I think that Mary's love for Jesus was so strong that she knew Jesus so well that she really could sense things that others couldn't sense, see things others couldn't see. There's an earlier account in Luke chapter 10 about Jesus visiting Mary and Martha and Lazarus another time. Again, it was a large group in the home, and Martha was frustrated because she was doing all the serving and clearing away the dishes. Mary wasn't helping her, and so she comes to Jesus. Lord, don't you care that my sister's left me to serve alone? Tell her to help me. And Jesus answered, Martha, Martha, you're worried and troubled about so many things, but one thing is needed. And Mary has chosen that good part, which will not be taken away from her. I mean, just think about this. Jesus was visiting with them. So what was really the most important thing? Was it making sure the dishes were washed or spending time with Jesus? Mary wanted to grow in her relationship with Jesus. Mary spent time getting to know Jesus. So when Mary pours out this expensive perfume over Jesus' feet, when she washes his feet with her hair, it's because she wants Jesus and everyone else to know how much he's come to mean to her. It's actually an act of worship. And if others think her love is foolish and extravagant, it doesn't matter because all Mary wants to do is express her devotion to Jesus. Isn't it interesting how those who don't know Jesus never understand the love of those who do? If you're really committed to Jesus, if you're really trying to live for God, the world labels you as some kind of religious fanatic. You're a Jesus freak. It's all right to have religion as long as you don't take it too seriously. That's the world's perspective. But the truth is, if you really know Jesus, it's hard not to take it seriously. How can you not take seriously a relationship with someone who gave his life for you? With someone who loves you more than anyone else is even capable of loving you? With someone who promises to be with you always and means it, not only in this life, but even beyond this life? So that brings up the question I asked at the beginning of the sermon today. A question this passage challenges us to ask. Who are we the more like? Mary, who loved extravagantly, or Judas, whose love was calculated? Do you care what other people think about you? Or are you more concerned about what God thinks about you? Are you afraid of speaking up because people might think you're a Jesus freak? Do you give to God only when it's convenient? Serve only when it fits your schedule? Run away from risk and sacrifice? The truth is that most of us start out more like Judas. 1 John 4:11 says, "Herein is love, not that we love God, but that He loved us and sent His Son to be the atoning sacrifice for our sins." So our relationship with God never started off with us loving Him first. It started off with Him loving us first. That's the reality of where we all start with God, not focused on what we can give to God, but on what we can get from God. And God understands that. But God also hopes that over time, that self-centered focus will change. That over time, we'll become like Mary. So that instead of obeying Jesus simply because of what's in it for us personally, because it has utilitarian value, we'll begin to obey because we love Him and trust Him. But that love and trust will only happen if we get to know Him. And that will only happen if, like Mary, we spend time with Him. We read our Bibles, we pray, we live life with God consciousness. In a letter to his sister, the painter Vincent van Gogh once wrote, "You read books to borrow therefrom the force to stimulate your activity. But I read books searching for the man who's written them." So how do you read the Bible? Why do you read the Bible? To discover principles so your life can be better? To search for promises to make your life safe? To look for proof texts you can use in religious arguments? Or do you read the Bible searching for the one who wrote it? You search the Scriptures, Jesus said to Israel's religious leaders, for in them you think you have eternal life. And these are they which testify of me. But you're not willing to come to me, that you may have life. Men who were spending all their lives searching the Scriptures and yet missing the main point. And they were meant to reveal Jesus, to reveal God, so that we might come to truly know Him and love Him. So who are you in more life, really? Mary, who loved Jesus extravagantly? Or Judas, whose love was calculated? Let's pray. I'd like for you to take a few moments and just talk to Jesus about the relationship with Him. We're going to be taking communion in a moment, remembering how much He loved us, how far He was willing to go because of that love. And I dare say there's no one else in your life yet who's died for you, who's been willing to give His life for you. Ask Him to help you love extravagantly, to not hold anything back. And while you're talking to God about that, maybe you're with us this morning and you haven't yet come to trust in Jesus as your Savior and Lord. Maybe you've been going through the motions of religion. Maybe you know intellectually who He is, but it's never really impacted your heart. You never truly come to know Him. If that's where you feel like you are this morning and you want to truly come to know Him, we if you want Jesus as your Savior and your Lord, and the promise of that relationship that not even death has the power to end, then if you'll raise your hand right now, I'll lead you in prayer of commitment.
If you would like to know more about us, you can find us on the web at wpbcmd.org and on Facebook at White Plains Baptist Church 1978.